Welcome!
This is Southern Bells and Chilling Tales,
a podcast about paranormal, true crime, and anything else that we feel like recording and then putting out there for y'all to listen to.
I'm Kristin.
And I'm Rebecca.
So, how have you been? Just tell me new stuff.
I'm good. I don't know. I don't have anything really to report. I'm doing very, very well. Very happy. Very smiley. And I baked a cake.
Oh, what kind of cake?
Yellow cake with chocolate frosting. That's one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
It's like so generic, but it's my favorite.
It's kind of nostalgic.
It is.
Yeah, because that's like almost all we had. We didn't have the fancy cakes that everybody has nowadays when we were kids.
Can you imagine in the 80s if somebody would have been like, would you like the specialty cake with specialty hazelnut crunch and a pouilletine? Or fouilletine. Pouilletine, I think, is something else.
I don't know what that is. With
it's like the
Smurfette on the top.
Right. I had a Smurf cake one year for my birthday. It was amazing.
But was it, you remember those little like sugary cracker type things?
No, it wasn't. It was just like they had drawn Smurfette on the cake. Yeah. Well, what about you? What's new? What's going on?
So my husband's crazy and decided to get quail. So now I have quail.
Congratulations.
And they're like a week old right now. They're super cute. They're starting to try to fly. So I have to keep the lid down so they don't fly out. So Haley had it wide open. I think it was yesterday. And I was like, keep that thing closed because they're going to start flying soon. And then here one comes popping out. And she's like, oh, crap. I didn't know they were going to fly like that.
How else will they fly?
Because they go from like nothing to, woo, here I go.
That's kind of amazing, though.
It is. Especially
when you look at the animal world and like giraffes and elephants and they're born and then they just, I'm standing up and now I'm going to wander around. And it's like, that's amazing.
Yeah, they just plop out and stand up.
Can you imagine if we gave birth and the baby was just like, hey, just stood up? Oh, babies that are born with teeth. Do you know that's a thing?
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it.
I swear to God, I'm not down with that. And I love children and I will take care of any baby anytime. But if you are a newborn with teeth, I'm probably going to let somebody else be your caregiver because that would terrify me.
I'm fine, but breastfeeding's out.
Noted.
There was something I was going to... I know something I was going to tell you. I finished Salem's Lot.
What did you think?
I'm not a fan.
Why?
I think maybe had I read it back then, I probably would have been. But, okay, so, like, it's so slow-moving, first of all. And I know I read that in not the previews, what do you call them?
Reviews.
Yeah. Like, it's a slow burn. I knew that, and I'm okay with that. But, spoiler if you haven't read it since the 70s or whenever it came out, everybody dies. I mean, I knew from the beginning that it was obviously like a man and a boy. So, I mean, it was pretty obvious that that's where it was going. But it was like, you know me. I want to know, like, where did this guy come from? How did he become a vampire? Like, where did it start? Like, what was the point in turning all these other people into vampires? Like, what was your goals, dude? Like,
did you have a vision board? What was the goal?
I just don't get it. I don't get how it's so great. However, when I try to put my mind in a time when they didn't have all of the stuff we have now, all of the technology we have to be able to research things and to even hear anything about vampires. Because, we've been told about vampires over and over and over again in many different ways and many different stories and many different, as I told you, like the axioms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, we get to kind of pick and choose what are good vampires and what are fun vampires. Back then, it was probably like, this is it.
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, I want to read Dracula, though. That's my next. I haven't read that one ever.
I've not read that one. I don't know if I could get through that one.
Really?
I don't, even watching Bram Stoker's Dracula.
No, I couldn't get through that.
It's kind of like, oh my God, please somebody eat somebody or kill somebody or somebody bleed.
Yeah.
Which sounds horrible, but I felt the same way about the Scream movie. Did you watch the new Scream movie?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay, spoiler alert again. Not enough people die. Like, I'm not watching a horror movie for all you fuckers to live through the movie. That's not what I came here for. Y'all should be dead.
Yeah, it's a slasher film.
Yes.
Where is the slashing?
And like, okay, you killed some characters that I don't give a shit about, but most of the main characters, they're a survivor, and I don't want that.
Somebody's got to die. Yeah, you got to have some people dying. It can't be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of like in the book I was talking about, like, I get it. Some people have to die, but it's like, do they all have to die?
See, I would have been fine with that. I'd have been like, look, just kill everybody off. The end.
That's true, because what, in the first Scream, was it just Sydney and then Gail Weathers and Dewey?
And nerdy movie guy.
Yes. So there's like 4 people. See, if the book just would have left 2 more people, I'd have been fine.
All right. So you don't want people to die, and I want everybody dead.
I don't know. It's definitely, I can't tell you 100% sure why. I was just kind of like, meh. I just know it was like anticlimactic at the end to me. There was something else. Oh, I started to watch 30 Days of Night.
I love that movie.
Is it 30?
I love that movie.
I started watching it, and I think I just wasn't really in the mood because I could see where it would be really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But like, I definitely can't get down with the vampire. They're freaky.
Yeah, I love them.
They're definitely
They're so
scary
fucking
vampires.
Scary. Love them.
These things almost look borderline alien, but I have to see the whole thing before I can truly comment on it. But I went through about 5 or 6 different shows or movies that night, and so I obviously just wasn't in the mood.
Yeah. Well, what chilling tale do you have for us today?
So today's chilling tale, I'm pretty excited about, as I told you earlier, because this is, I think, kind of the biggest one I've done. And because this one's so crazy, I'm doing a cryptid next time.
Ooh, all right.
So today's chilling tale is the life and crimes of the Night Stalker.
Bum, bum, bum.
I think he is the worst of all the serial killers out there. And I'll tell you why throughout, but
Okay.
It's just crazy. Okay. Shoppers in an East Los Angeles liquor store noticed a man come in, pick up a newspaper with his face on it, and run. Police were notified and both cars and helicopters were dispatched to pursue him. While police were looking for him, he ran into a neighborhood to steal a car. The people in the neighborhood recognized him and attacked him, so he ran to try to steal a different car. The driver of this car fought back, but he punched her in the stomach and got her keys. The driver's husband and a neighbor came to help. The neighbor pulled him out of the car, and the husband hit him with barbecue utensils.
Okay.
The man still escaped, but a group of these neighbors chased him, yelling, El Matador, which means the killer. Before we finish this part of the story, let's go back to how this man's face ended up on the front of a newspaper in the first place. So it's kind of like Walk the Line, where they take you to the very end, and then you go all the way back to the beginning.
Like, here's what happened at the end, but...
Yeah, why is he in jail playing a guitar? All right, so now let's go find out. So, Richard Ramirez, a devout Satanist,
Oh, Lord.
said to be a sociopathic, disorganized thrill killer who kidnapped and molested children, brutally raped, tortured, sodomized, killed, and raped corpses of his victims.
Good God.
He killed anyone. He did not discriminate against age, gender, race, or anything else. This was and still is unheard of, making him especially terrifying. So
Wait, so he said he was a Satanist, or they assume he was a Satanist?
There he is. I'll tell you all about it. This comes during the time of Satanic Panic, but there was no panic needed. It was there.
Okay. All right. Let's go.
All right. So as I was saying about serial killers, I make no excuses for serial killers. Probably. But if ever there was a man trained to kill, Richard was him. So Richard was born February 28, 1960 in El Paso, Texas. He was the youngest of 5 children. His mother worked as a dye manufacturer in a boot factory while pregnant with all of her children. So all of the children have birth defects from the fumes.
That's sad.
Yeah, so kind of a bad start, but there's 5 of them and he's only 1. Obviously that was not a causation.
No, but that's still sad.
Yeah. His father was a manual laborer for the railroad. Originally, he was from Mexico, where he was a cop, wherever he was, or police officer. They're both originally from Mexico, his parents.
Okay.
But his dad was gone a lot. He was an alcoholic, and he would have fits of rage, physically abusing his family. that he wasn't always like that. It just kind of started after a certain event. It's said that many serial killers had head trauma as children, leading to behavior changes that contribute to their violence in adulthood. Some of these known killers were Albert Fish, the werewolf of Wisteria, David Berkowitz, son of Sam, Henry Lee Lucas. Other than the confession killer, I'm not sure he has. I mentioned them last time we talked, and you were like, yeah, we have T.
Yeah.
So this is your T-buddy.
Awesome.
All right, Dennis Rader, the BTK killer. Ed Gein. It's called The Butcher of Plainfield, which I never heard before this, but he's the person who inspired the movies Psycho, Silence of the Lambs, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and many more. The one who wears all the faces of the people, yes. Richard had 2 head traumas. While he was being watched with a babysitter at 2 years old, Richard wanted to turn on the radio. The babysitter refused, so he climbed a nearby dresser, opening the drawers to use the steps. The dresser fell on his head and knocked him unconscious.
Ooh.
He needed 30 stitches.
Holy crap.
I'm always so scared of that with the things. Even now, the kids are older. I'm kind of like, don't climb on the dresser.
Right. Watch your head.
When he was 5, Richard and his sister Ruth had a mutual adoration for each other. One day at the park, he was so excited to see her that he ran to her while she was swinging. When she jumped off the swing, it knocked Richard in the head, giving him a concussion.
Oh.
Yeah. I know it was just another podcast I listened to, and they're always like, feel sorry for the child, not for the crazy murderer that they turned out to be, but at the time, still a child. Yeah. What's sad is, if all this did lead to him being so crazy, it is hard not to feel sorry for him. I know he caused all these problems on so many people, and you still at some point make a choice, but how much choice do you really have? I don't know how much we fully understand about the brain to really make that judgment.
I feel bad that these things happen to him because I never want a child to get hurt.
Right.
But if he is seriously fucked up later, I will care until when you're of adult age, I no longer care. Yeah. But, that's like those children or like teenagers that murder people. Mm-hmm. I don't feel bad for you. So I guess there's definitely a line.
It's not that I don't think I ever feel bad. It's just, how much were you in control? I don't know. I don't even know how to explain how I feel about it. Because it's like, I'm sorry, whatever happened, you gotta go. You gotta go to jail, period. You gotta be away from society. Because whatever happened to you, you can't function in society and everybody else be safe. Yeah. But as far as what caused you to get there, for me to be like, oh, I judge you, you're a evil whatever. I don't know what got you there.
I think some people are just born evil.
Yeah, but
I'm not saying that this person particularly was, because I haven't heard the whole story yet. But I think some people are. And I think that is where my brain and my heart kind of get confused. Because you want to love people and give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, it'd be different if, like manslaughter, you accidentally did something and somebody died.
Or carelessly did something.
Right. Yeah. That's different than intentionally deciding you want to take somebody's life or you want to torture them and mutilate them. Like, there's a difference.
Sometimes I'm as mad as someone who gets manslaughter if you were being so careless, knowing that what you were doing could cause people to lose their lives, and you did not care. So you may not have actively sought out somebody to kill them, but you cared more about whatever it was you were doing than the lives of these other people.
True.
I almost sometimes am more upset about that than someone, I know this sounds horrible, that had some sort of like, they lost it. It's not cool, I'm not trying to say it is, but it's just like, it's all so situational for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to just put it in black and white because there's so much.
Yep.
So much that could have led to that. Baby got a radio on his head. That's sad.
I don't know, and then there's some people you're like, oh my gosh, they had such a bad childhood, but then all the things that happened to them, you're like, but a lot of people had that, and they still didn't turn out that way. So it's got to be some combination of nature and nurture.
Well, because like at work we did the ACE quiz, and I don't remember exactly what the letters stand for right now. Adverse childhood something.
Experiences?
It might be. And it kind of gives you a score.
Mm-hmm.
And you realize that everybody's childhood had really messed up stuff because we're humans being raised by humans. So I think the nature versus nurture has a lot to do with it. But again, like I said, I think some people are just born evil. Like, do I think anybody could have saved Hitler? No. Just like you're messed up. Nobody can help you.
So, back to Richard. The concussion led to many seizures that would cause him many problems throughout his life. Richard had a moment of hope, though, when he was 12 years old, because he tried out for his school football team, and he turned out to be really good. And, you know, like in Texas, I mean,
Big
football
deal.
is life. So if you're...
Thanks, Varsity Blues.
Yeah. So he became the quarterback, which, you know, that's
Big deal.
Big deal. So apparently he was good. But towards the end of the season, he had a seizure on the field.
Oh.
So his coach, he didn't want to be liable, so he kicked him off. So it was like, this was like the one ray of hope in his life where it was like, here, I have something I'm good at. And apparently he was a good kid, a good student, was getting good grades. He just tried to avoid his father because his father was just always angry. And his father was like gone a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so he just tried to stay out of trouble. But that was part of the many things that changed him, just because it was like, well, that's it. I tried and I can't be good. But anyway, so that was when he was 12. So there's some other things around that same time that started happening. But I'll get to that. So his seizures would eventually be diagnosed as temporal lobe epilepsy, which can change a person's behaviors. People can have really high sex drive and become super religious.
Okay.
So as I said, Richard was trained to be a killer. He was trained to be a sexual predator. Richard's cousin returned home from war. He was 24-year-old Miguel, known as Mike. This monster deserves his own episode, but I guess since Richard's crimes overshadow his, so there's not really a whole lot out there about him except within Richard's stories. So the things that we do know. He was a Green Beret, but he was also a sadistic serial killer while in Vietnam.
What?
He kidnapped many Vietnamese women, tying them to trees, raping them. He would then decapitate them and shrink their heads.
What?
And he took a lot of Polaroid pictures while doing all of this. They think that his superiors actually knew about this, but because he was so good at being a soldier, he actually came home a decorated war hero.
What the actual fuck?
Exactly. He had like the 70s.
Good grief. No. Mm-mm.
When Mike came home, he and Richard started hanging out. And Richard was about 12 years old, but he was like 12 and 13 when they hung out.
What is he saying? Like, hey, you want to see these shrunken heads?
Yes, he is.
Oh, no. I was being silly.
Yes, he is.
Oh.
So he tells him all about those violent crimes, tells him all about how he raped these women and tied them up into details, shows him all the Polaroids,
Ooh.
and shows him the shrunken heads.
What? How did you...
Get him home?
Yeah.
I want to know, too.
Like, they're just in your suit. Well,
yeah.
I guess it wasn't like now where they, like, x-ray everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, they didn't care. Cool heads. Bought them at the market.
oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The 70s.
Oh.
That's all you can say about anything is the 70s.
Oh my God. Okay.
You can imagine growing up in the 70s. I mean, if you listen
With shrunken heads, no.
Yeah.
Maybe without the shrunken heads, but good. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm stuck on the shrunken heads.
All right, you don't have shrunken heads in your house?
I mean, no. And all I can really imagine is that part in Beetlejuice where he's sitting on the couch at the very end and the man sprinkles the stuff and shakes his head.
Maybe that was Mike.
I'm very disturbed by the shrunken heads. I mean, the raping and decapitation is also very horrible. And I'm not saying that it's not. I'm just saying, like, what kind of a psycho are you that your trophy, like, where were you drying out the head to shrink it?
Okay, so you do have the thought. Because I'm like, we're different. Because I'm sitting here like, how'd you shrink the head? Who taught you how to do that?
Yeah.
How do you shrink a head? Would someone like to donate a head so we can try this out?
No. But, yeah, like, so you're in Vietnam.
For science.
They see you bring back this woman's head where you're going to dehydrate? I don't know. Okay.
Definitely need to be looking that up, though. Because, I mean, is it like the bone? Does it get smaller? Because, I mean, how does it shrink? I wouldn't think you'd be able to shrink a bone head. Like, you know, the skull.
Yeah,
Bone head.
All right. Let's move on because the shrunken heads
Definitely get stuck on it.
Yeah. Okay.
So he told him all about it, showed the Polaroids, shrunken heads, everything. So he told Richard how much of a rush and a high it was to have control over life and death of others, playing God. This is where Richard began to have sexual fantasies that included torture. It fused sex and violence in his mind because, that's when puberty is happening. And he all of a sudden, because you're having sexual fantasies as a teenager, now you've seen these brutal torturings of these people, and it's like you just can't help but think about them. So basically, Mike kind of showed him, trained him, introduced him into the whole sexual...
deviancy.
Yes.
Gotcha.
I was going to say that, but I don't know if it would quite fit. But yeah, but he also trained him in war, which goes into his killing later. So he taught him how to move silently in the dark. He also taught him the best, most efficient ways to kill people. Yeah, one of which is to stab somebody in the side of the neck and then pull it forward to do their carotid artery in case you need to know.
Okay, great, Kristin. Thanks.
Yeah. So don't come in my house. I'm going to you up.
Obviously. I'm going to knock again and text you before I come to your house.
I didn't mean you. I mean, if somebody sneaks in the middle of the night.
Just saying.
I haven't tried it yet. So.
Yet? Oh my gosh.
I'm not going to try it on anybody random. Just somebody comes and tries to break in, like a Night Stalker type.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so here comes, I don't know if I'd say the worst part, but that this guy Mike did. So when Richard was 13, Mike and his wife got in an argument because Mike didn't want to get a job.
Mike is married?
Yeah, he got a wife and 2 kids.
And he's like, hey, baby, can I put these shrunken heads on the mantelpiece?
I have no idea about that part. It didn't talk about that part. I didn't write this in here, but I listened to this one podcast that I will put in the show notes because they have all their research and I'm just listening to their podcast. So I didn't really want to take all their stuff. But supposedly he had a gun ready and he put it in the refrigerator for some reason because he said he wanted it to be cool. Don't get it.
What?
But he was ready for a fight when his wife came home. And so he pulls the gun out in the middle of an argument because she's pissed at him. She's like, you got to get a job. Like, we're barely able to afford groceries. You're hanging out with this kid. Just sitting
who's
around.
13.
Yeah, doing some kind of drug. I think they were just smoking weed, but I think they huffed glue or something. I don't know. But anyway, so he pulls the gun and he puts it in her face and she's just kind of laughing at him like, what are you going to do? I mean, I'm sure that's my words, not hers, but same gist. So, I mean, you got somebody waving a gun in your face and you're laughing, challenging them and stuff.
I will say this. If you are going to pull a gun on me, you better be ready to shoot me.
Well, he did.
Because I absolutely, those men who are just I just wanted to scare her. I'm going to scare your nuts off in the middle of the night with my knife. I am sorry that she got shot.
Yeah, she got shot. He shot her. He killed her.
You better. Because, oh my God, you're not going to be, don't play with me. I think we have established that Becca is not to be played with. Don't try to, I'm the man, whatever. No.
I feel the same way. If you're going to do it, you better go ahead and shoot me because it's about to be war.
Yeah, I hope he really had his feelings hurt when she was laughing at him.
But he did get arrested, thankfully.
Okay.
I don't know anything else about it, though, because like I say, there's not a lot out there about him. All they act like is how this affects Richard. And it's kind of well, that's kind of fucked up because this guy is like a monster.
Yeah.
He's his own monster.
So that kind of makes Richard Frankenstein's monster.
I guess. Kind of.
Okay.
He's kind of everybody's monster.
Fucked up.
Because everybody contributed to all his stitches and body parts. Okay, so, yes, in the argument, he shot his wife in the face right in front of their 2 sons and Richard.
Oh, no, not in front of the babies.
In front of their 2 sons, yes. That's not in a lot of places. Everybody always focuses on how he shot her in front of Richard. It's well, where are these 2 little boys? I know they don't deserve to be in the spotlight because they didn't do anything. But it's are they okay?
Right. Obviously, that's super traumatic, and they should have just killed him instead of arresting him. That's another reason why I would not be able to be a police officer or anything.
Yeah.
Because I'd be oh, you shot the mother in front of your children?
Yeah.
Shank. That's when I could use that thing about the carotid.
Yes.
That's when it would be useful.
Practiced. So, anyway, obviously this changed Richard, on top of all the other stuff that is already starting to happen. So, after this, he started doing worse in school and He became a little unruly for his parents, and his dad's crazy already, so he's just like not dealing with it. So they sent him to live with his sister Ruth, the same one that he loved so much and ended up getting hit in the swing.
Yes.
Yeah. So the problem with that is her husband, Roberto, is a peeping Tom. Or was a peeping Tom.
What the hell is wrong with this bunch?
Family, yeah. Sad part is Mom's super devout Catholic and trying her best to just go to church and be a good godly woman, and then here's all her kids and like, all your kids are turning out. Which, it's not saying Ruth was, it was her husband. Anyway, he would take Richard with him, so it's not bad enough that you're a peeping Tom. You take him with you and teach him how to do it.
Why?
Training.
Why?
I mean, okay. So you think about nowadays, all these guys, they'll get caught doing stuff like passing around pictures and all this kind of stuff. Oh, well, it's just boys being boys. So that was their version of, oh, we're just being boys. It's no big deal.
Oh my, gross. Okay.
Yeah, I don't get it either. All right, so his training started to get put into action when he was 15. He got a job at a Holiday Inn. He molested 2 little boys in an elevator.
No, he needs to die.
Yeah, already. They never reported it. So he also robbed guests and peeped in on women because he had like the key card, that you can go into the rooms.
I'm sure it wasn't a key card. I'm sure it was an actual key.
Said it. Back then it was a key card, but yeah, it probably was just a key. I don't know.
Oh, all right. So he needs to die. Check.
This is when he attempted his first act of sexual violence on a woman. He thought she was alone, so he snuck into her room. He tied her up, but her husband came back before he was able to fully attack her. So the husband beat Richard to a pulp.
Good.
Putting him in the hospital.
Excellent.
The couple called the police and Richard was arrested. But the couple, not wanting to relive it, they dropped the charges.
No.
Yeah, I get it, but I could almost understand you not wanting to keep going through that. But yeah, if you stop and think about, like, if I get him now, then we could stop future people. If you're thinking that way, but if you're thinking on your own, it's almost like, I'd literally just get away. Because I don't think they were from the area. I think they lived somewhere else. So they were like, we'll just be away from them.
If you, again, makes me sound like a horrible person. But if you broke into my room, tied me up, and you were going to do horrible things to me, I'll come back to town just to make sure you burn. Like, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
As many trips, do I need to take some time off of work? Because I can do that too.
I got somewhere to be. You don't have to keep saying you're a terrible person because you're not. We all have our way of dealing with things. And I mean, I think that's a very reasonable thought process. Nothing wrong with it. You're not a horrible person.
Okay.
So you don't have to keep saying that.
Apparently I want to see people suffer, but,
All right, so Richard was arrested in the hospital, all that stuff. So his family came to see him. And of course, they can't believe their baby did this. Because, nobody really knows somebody else. And of course, his parents probably have no idea. I wonder if Ruth even knows her husband's a peeping Tom. So he told his family that the woman came on to him. And that they were doing their thing. And then the husband caught them. And then she was trying to save face and say that, he attacked her.
Okay.
You could see where that would cause some...
Confusion.
As a parent, I would want to believe my kid. I can't help it. Like, I want to believe the best of my kid. So they did. They believed him. Less problematic, but still problematic. I don't want to say that, so we'll just say he was also trained in burglary. All the way back when he was 4, his oldest brother, Reuben, was arrested for breaking and entering a home. Their father beat him until he bled. This was when their father started becoming abusive. So even though he was beat, and the mom had to pull him off of him, it was so bad. Reuben continued to break into homes. By the time he was an adult, he became a professional burglar. At 13, Richard's parents sent him to live with Reuben in LA. So this was more than likely, because they kind of jump all over in all these different things. But it was around the same time after his cousin shot his wife, and he had lived with Ruth for a little while. I don't know if he lived with Ruth first or if they sent him out to live with Reuben for a little while. Well, they didn't know Reuben was still breaking into homes. Reuben also lived in one of the worst areas of LA, and his parents just did not know any of that. So they're thinking, we can't control him, so maybe you can help. While he was there, Richard went with Reuben on these robberies at 13.
Okay.
Trained to be what he became. All right, so he came back at some point to El Paso and got into some trouble. So when he was 18 years old is when he moved back out to Los Angeles, and that's where he was permanently. He lived with his brother again for a little while. He and his brother burglarized homes for a few months together, but at some point, Reuben thought Richard was hitting on his wife. He still, I say still swears to this day, but he's dead now, but he swore that he wasn't hitting on his wife. And all the stuff that he eventually admitted to, you would think he would admit to that. But anyway, so Richard moved out.
Okay.
So LA was like a playground for somebody like this. There are a lot of people with a lot of money. Sex is everywhere. They have porn shops with bondage magazines. Mm-hmm. They have porn movie theaters. So people can just sit there and whack off, I guess. I don't know.
Ew. His floor is sticky.
Yeah.
Come on, that was funny.
Yes, but also disgusting. Because I'm just like, this goes into that whole, what is your thought process like? Do you just not care? Or is it like gross someone else whacked off? Or like, yeah, that's my bro.
My hand is a little tired. Could you reach over, friend?
Ew. No. It's just like, are you all in there whacking off at the same time? Like, I just don't get it. I don't know.
I mean, no.
I don't know.
That's kind of like a personal, private thing.
You would think.
Okay.
I guess not when you're like this, but anyway, so he would also go out into the desert killing animals to practice killing.
So whack off for a little while, go kill some animals. Saturday.
Around this time, he started doing harder drugs like LSD.
Which I'm sure was helpful.
I was actually watching some Mythical Beasts.
I've seen that.
So you know the one with the vampires?
Yeah.
Did you see the one where they have like all the brains lit up and then when somebody's on LSD, it's like the whole brain is activated. So are we hallucinating or are we seeing things that we're not supposed to be seeing? Because I mean, it's your whole brain.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Are we just now tapping into something that we're not normally able to tap into?
I'm going to go with no.
I think so.
Okay, you go with yes and I'll go with no. Just like we always do on this podcast.
I'm good with that. It makes it more interesting. I mean, if we thought the same on everything, that would be boring.
It would be boring. There's also one about Dr. Delirium. Have you seen that one on Discovery Plus?
I just started watching this.
It's really good. It's about how the government and the military thought that they could use LSD, and they did all these experiments.
Are you talking about, what was it called? It was like a conspiracy theory for a long time, but it turned out to be true.
Well, watch that on Discovery Plus.
Okay.
It's very good.
Anyway, so he was homeless at this time. So he would steal cars just so he could sleep in them for days at a time. Another kind of fun fact, you know, like the Cecil Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
He would go there after some of his murders and like wash off and clean off and be there. And it was kind of normal for them because they had a lot of different murderers coming there.
I mean, Murder Castle.
Yep. So he would be on Skid Row a lot.
It's like weirdos finding weirdos. I mean, I'm weird. Don't get me wrong. But how are these freaks finding each other?
Well, it's like when you go to school, you see the people that are like you and you go hang out.
All right.
Freaks over here.
You can tell that you are not a freak because you said that in the most cheerleaderish manner ever. Cheerleaders, freaks over here.
We had our own little group, though. We weren't really in one of those specific.
No.
And I think that was really only like our freshman year, maybe sophomore. And then after that, it was like the grade above us and our grade. We weren't as separated as they were in our freshman year.
Yeah.
But anyway, I don't know what you're talking about. We hung out. Anyway, this is where the Satan stuff comes in. Richard was raised Catholic and believed in the power of God, but he knew God would disapprove of all his ways. Given this brain injury, he needs to serve some higher power. So he started considering the devil as an alternative. Instead of a sufferer of hell, if he was like a soldier of the devil, he would then go to hell and be like commander over a demon army or something.
Okay.
Around this time, he started using cocaine, even like shooting it up. And he said it made him feel closer to Satan. In the summer of 1978, he gagged and tortured his first known victim, but she didn't go to the police. The more things happened and the more he wasn't getting in trouble for them, he thought he was actually being justified as being a soldier of the devil. So we're starting to get into his reign of terror on everybody and everything. Los Angeles in the 70s and 80s became known as the serial capital of America. More than 20 serial killers were working a 5-mile radius at a time.
Ugh.
Among them were the Hillside Stranglers, 2 cousins who tortured, raped, and killed 10 women and girls between 77 and 78, dumping their bodies in the hills surrounding Los Angeles. The Freeway Killer, who kidnapped, raped, and murdered teenage boys and young men in 79 and 80. The Skid Row Stabber, who is still unknown, killed 10 homeless men on Skid Row. LA was no stranger to serial killers. But in 1984, Richard's killing spree would terrify residents more than any of the others. He was a true monster, killing men, women, children, all ranging in ages between 9 to 83. All in the name of Satan, but really I think it's for his greed and sadistic sexual desires. His first known killing at the time was June 28th, 1984. 79-year-old Jeannie Venkow. And I didn't look up all these names, but I would have had to watch a bunch of stuff, I think, to hear them all, because not every single one of them talks about all the victims. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of them that I'm pretty sure I'm going to get completely wrong.
So she's 79.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how pissed I would be to get to the age of 79
mm-hmm.
and then get murdered?
Yeah.
You survived all this other stuff. That's just insult to injury.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
She was found by her son. She had been stabbed repeatedly and had her throat slashed. Richard initially broke in to rob her, but she was very poor and had no valuables. This angered him, so he killed her. He was aroused by this, so he decided to rape her corpse.
Ew.
Yeah. All right. In April 1984, he murdered 9-year-old Mei Leung, but no one knew he was responsible until DNA evidence connected him in 2009. He raped and stabbed her in the basement of a hotel. She was hanged on a pole in a cross position. Her 8-year-old brother found her.
Oh, no.
Just before this, no, a whole year later. So, February 1985, Richard abducted 6-year-old Anastasia Hronis and took her to his home and sexually assaulted her.
No.
He took her back to a gas station and dropped her off. There were similar child abductions in February and March of that year. They were abducted, sexually assaulted, then abandoned. The children all described their attacker as tall and light-skinned with brown-stained teeth, a pungent odor, and a members-only style jacket.
He needs to die and then be revived, to be killed, to be revived, to be tortured, to be revived, to be cut to pieces, to get put back together, to get revived.
Like it's like Frankenstein.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. March 17th, 1985. So around the same time. I don't really understand why he did that with children, and then now all of a sudden he's doing this.
Because he's a psycho freak.
But there's no other mention of him doing that to children again. It's like he did that for a couple of months, and then now he's switched over to this. It's just all over the place.
It's fucking nuts.
It's almost like there's a multitude in us. There's a multitude of demons in there, and they're all doing something different, all in this one man. But anyway, on March 17th, 1985, Richard entered the home of roommates Dale. There are quite a few. I'm going to try to speed through some of the ones that are just very similar.
Okay.
But this is the start of it. He entered the home of roommates Dale Okazaki, 34, and Maria Hernandez, 20, through the garage when he encountered Maria. He shot her in the face, then entered the house. Dale heard the gunshot and hid behind the kitchen counter. When she peeked up to see what was happening, Richard was waiting for her and shot her in the head. Richard left through the front door. He was surprised to see Maria entering as he exited, because she thought he came in through the garage, he's going to go back out of the garage, so she was like, I'm going to go in the front door. She told him he had already shot her, so do you really need to do it again? Given his thought process with the divine, he thought there was some divine intervention and thought she was supposed to live. What he didn't know was Maria brought her hands up to cover her face when he shot her, and the bullet ricocheted off her keychain.
Oh.
So it knocked her down and she played dead. She thought he was gone already, so she was going to go and check on her roommate because she heard the shot.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he let her live. 40 minutes later, 30-year-old art student Veronica Yu was dragged from her car and shot to death. The attacker was described as tall and light-skinned and brown-stained awful teeth and a pungent odor some described as reeking like a goat.
Just like those babies.
And a members-only style jacket.
Yikes.
Yes. So this is when young detective Gil Carrillo, I don't know how to say it properly, and I'm sure it says it on that show. So he put together these murders and child abductions may be connected, that it was all one man. Nobody agreed because the crimes were all over the place. There was no clear motive, no clear victim type, and that was just completely unheard of at the time, and apparently is still unheard of. March 27th, 1985, Richard broke into the home of 64-year-old Vincent Zazzara. He broke into this same home a year earlier. He shot Vincent while he was asleep on the couch. Richard then went to the bedroom and tied up Vincent's wife, Maxine. While he ransacked the house, she broke free. Getting a shotgun they kept under the bed. When he came back into the room, she pulled the trigger and shot him in the face. But the gun had no ammo. Could have been all over. Vincent removed it the night before when their grandchildren came over and forgot to reload it after.
Oh, he's being a responsible pop.
Yes. So Richard shot her 3 times, went to the kitchen to get a knife and mutilated her body, cutting out her eyes.
Oh, no.
He took them with him in her jewelry box.
Please leave my eyes alone. They don't even work that well. Just leave them there.
At this point, detectives Gil and his partner, Frank Salerno, who assisted in the rest of the Hillside Stranglers that I mentioned before, were sure there was a serial killer on the loose. Matching bullets and footprints of an Avia shoe were found at each crime scene. But they were the only ones that thought that it was all connected. Okay. No one else believed them yet. 56-year-old Lillian Doi, D-O-I, Doi, was bedridden after a stroke.
Oh, no.
Richard shot her husband, 66-year-old Bill, in the head, then beat him.
What?
Bill was still able to call the police, but he did die. He put Lillian in thumb cuffs, robbed them, and raped her.
What is a thumb cuff?
These weird little things that just like attach to your thumbs. I don't really get how they hold you there, other than maybe they'll cut you if you move. Okay. I don't know. There's pictures of them online, but I still don't get it. But she did survive.
Okay.
A few days later, he entered the home of sisters and roommates, 83-year-old Mabel Bell, known as Ma Bell, and 80-year-old Florence Lang. I know they're all content warnings, but something about them being in their 80s is just extra. Known as Nettie, he tied them up and beat them with a hammer. He took a cord and shocked Mabel.
Oh.
He raped Nettie and drew a pentagram on her thigh and the bedroom wall. This is the worst part. The 2 sisters were obviously close because they not only lived together, but their beds were right next to each other in the same room. So they had to watch each other go through this as well. There's a picture of their bedroom online, and it's like literally like right next to each other.
That's awful.
Yeah. They were found 2 days later, alive but unconscious.
Oh.
But Mabel later died in the hospital.
Oh, bless her.
The next day, he broke into the house of 41-year-old Carol Kyle. He bound her and her son. He robbed them and raped Carol, threatening to cut her eyes out if she looked at him. They were left alive and tied up. About a month later, Richard broke into 75-year-old Mary Louise Cannon, beating her with a lamp, then stabbing her with a butcher knife, continuing to stab her even after she was dead. 16-year-old Whitney Bennett was attacked in her bed with a tire iron. She was then strangled with a cord. Richard freaked out when there were sparks and she started to breathe. There was a blue light that Richard interpreted as Jesus intervening. He left her alive, but she did have to have 478 stitches in her head.
Good grief.
So that one podcast, again, I don't want to steal all their stuff, but they were talking about how this, because I think they use a lot of his interviews from a certain book or certain books to say what he was going through at the time. And that was one of the things that it was like, he was confused. He's like, why would Jesus be intervening right now? Because it was like this big blue light that he saw when that spark happened. So later, not the same night, but later, 61-year-old Joyce Nelson was beaten while sleeping on her couch. Richard stomped on her face.
No.
When he stomped, he left her shoe print in blood, though. Ugh. So that was how they knew it was him. So the same night, he robbed and attempted to rape 63-year-old Sophie Dickman. He couldn't get an erection, though. She had worked in a psych ward, so she knew the best way to handle him was to comply and talk to him. He made her swear to Satan she did not have anything else of value before he left her alive. This is when the media began to cover all of this. This is when they started calling him the Night Stalker. At this time, he was like, I need to up my game, even though it's already pretty up there. So he bought a machete.
What?
He broke into the home of 68-year-old Max and 66-year-old Leela Needing and hacked them with the machete, then shot them to death. But he cut them up more after death. I read or heard in one of those podcasts or something that he was thinking he was going to then chop their heads off and then display them in the front lawn. But I didn't read where he ever actually did that. He shot and killed 32-year-old Chainarong Kovananth. Kovananth. We'll go with that. Kovananth.
Okay,
it's
sure.
Khovananth. Okay. Anyway. Tied up his wife, Somkid, I want to say it, and their 8-year-old son, raping the wife. He then took her around the house for her to show him the valuables, also making her swear to Satan that she wasn't holding out anymore. That was kind of the one main thing that seemed to be the same through a lot of these houses when there was a couple. Kill the husband immediately. Tie up the woman. Either get her to show him the goods first and then rape her, or rape her, then show the goods, make her swear to Satan that she didn't have anything else. August 6, 1985, Richard broke into the home of Chris and 27-year-old Virginia Peterson. I didn't say how old he was. Intending to do what he normally does. He shot them both, though.
Okay.
But it turns out his bullets were old. The gunpowder... Is that a thing? Apparently, it is. The gunpowder didn't do what it was supposed to do. So they were able to fight him off, and they were fighting him, but he was able to get free and he fled.
Okay.
I forgot to mention that after his very first... That first one that I said I forgot to write a bunch of things about it, like in 1978. It was either that one or his very first break-in. He ended up getting kind of sloppy and he had a hard time focusing. And he realized that it was because he was high on coke, so he stopped doing coke back then. So when he stopped doing cocaine, that's when this became his high. So he was always chasing some kind of high, and this is what...
he chose.
Yes.
So. I never thought I would want somebody to do cocaine.
Seems like a better option.
Yeah.
Not hurting other people. 2 nights later, he killed 31-year-old Eliza or Alyssa. I think it's Eliza. Abawath. He then handcuffed his 27-year-old wife, Sakina. Anyway. Demanding to know where the jewelry was. Then brutally raped her. Their 3-year-old son came to see what was going on. Richard tied him up and continued to rape the mother. He did leave them alive, though. That's what I wonder. Why did he leave some alive? Richard knew from the media the cops were on his trail, so he left the Los Angeles area and went to San Francisco. I did kind of notice it seems like he's almost more brutal with the old ladies.
Yeah. And I wonder if it's about his mom.
I know, but how old was his mom at this time? I have no idea. And he seems like he's raping these younger women that are closer to his age, but he seems like he leaves more of them alive, except the very first one he shot in the head.
And nothing that
she was 30s.
This dude is doing makes any sense to me. Like, it's not tracking at all.
It doesn't, but it does seem almost like he has different rules for different age groups. Like the kids. I mean, he did kill that one girl. We didn't know about that till later, but it's like he's not really killing any of the kids. He's leaving them. He's not messing with them while they're in the house. He's tying them up, but he's not doing anything to them. And then the kids that he was molesting and all that, he would kidnap them, molest them, take them back. He didn't kill any of them. It was only that one girl, and not only because it still matters, but it's did he just do that and then he was like that?
It wasn't for him.
Wrong? Yeah, I don't know. And then, like I say, it just seems like he's just stabbing the old ladies and really doing some extra shit to them.
That's why I was wondering if it has something to do with his mom.
His mom.
The Oedipus complex.
Weird, because he seemed like he really got along with his mom, and his mom was one of the few shining lights in his life. I think he was really close to her. Even called her before he started really worshiping Satan, pray for me, I'm really struggling, Satan came to me. I don't know. Maybe that was why he couldn't face the fact that she was on the other side. Who knows?
Okay.
So, he went up to San Francisco. He broke into the home of Peter and Barbara Pan, ages 66 and 62. He shot and killed Peter instantly. He beat and raped Barbara, then shot her, leaving her to die. He drew a pentagram and jacked the knife on the wall. Like Jack the Ripper kind of thing. His Avia shoe print he left at the scene tied him to the LA murders. The cops contacted the Avia shoe company. Only one of that exact shoe, size, and color, which the color was identified by the victims as black, was sent to LA. Police were holding this and the information about the gun secret from the media. It was what was tying all the crimes together. However, the mayor of San Francisco held a press conference where she divulged this info to the press, angering the detectives because this was their only lead that was like definitively tying it all together.
Right.
Richard got word of this, went to the Golden Gate Bridge, dropped him off.
Ugh.
Then he headed back to LA. So going back to the LA area, he goes to something Viejo, Mission Viejo. He started to go break into this one home and never actually did, but there was a 13-year-old boy where they had gone somewhere and they came back and something that he had that he needed was left in his truck, in his dad's truck. Mm-hmm. So he went out there to get it. He came back and he heard some noise, so he started getting curious and peeking out to see what was going on. And he saw him, but Richard fled. But the kid saw the make, the model, the color, and license plate of the vehicle that Richard was in.
Wow.
Yes. So the same night, Richard broke into the home of 30-year-old Bill Carnes and his 29-year-old fiancée, Inez Erickson. He did the usual, shot the husband, tied up, tortured, raped, and robbed the woman. Except surgeons were able to remove the bullets and save the husband.
Oh.
Right. Inez was able to describe and identify Richard when the fingerprints from the stolen car were matched to him. The fingerprint system had just been installed, and the database only had people born after January 1st, 1960, which was only about a month before Richard was born, so he was in there.
Wow.
They also heard from a woman who believed her father had befriended the Night Stalker. The man said he was a man from El Paso who went by the name of Rick. They also followed a lead from a stolen bracelet to a man who was friends with Richard and got the bracelet from him. I don't know if he was trying to hawk it or something, and somebody was like, hey, I recognize this bracelet somehow.
You've been stealing and raping.
Yeah. He told them his friend's name was Richard Ramirez. It all came together. They had him. They posted his mugshot on file. They had a press conference where they said, we know who you are now, and soon everyone else will. There will be no place you can hide. But Richard was out of town. And didn't see the press conference. He was driving to Arizona to see his brother. He must have gone unannounced because his brother wasn't home. Okay. And I guess just decided to go back to LA.
That's a long drive.
Exactly, just to turn around. When he returned back to the bus station in LA, which is right there by East Los Angeles, and that's where his brother lived before. And I think that's close to Skid Row, but I'm not real sure. He saw the police in the bus station and he panicked because he's like, oh my gosh, they're on to me. Mm-hmm. Still didn't know there was a thing out there. A press conference.
Everybody knew.
Didn't know that they knew. So he snuck out the bus station and he went to that convenience store in East Los Angeles.
Oh, where he saw his face.
Yep, this is where that beginning story picks back up. He saw his picture plastered on the newspaper. He ran out of the store, an entire Mexican neighborhood yelling, El Matador, get him, detained him until the police came. However, I didn't write this part in here, but they were like you. They were like, kill him!
Yeah.
Kill him! Yes, so one of the cops was like, oh my gosh, I gotta get a handle on this situation. So, this scene is depicted in American Horror Stories 1984, and it is so beautiful.
Oh!
Yes. It's perfect. It's, to me, the most satisfying criminal takedown ever. It's so satisfying in the end to watch him get taken down.
Right.
To watch this entire community come together. We're not waiting for the cops.
Yeah.
We got this.
Yeah.
Okay, you also can see him in the car after they arrested him with his head all bandaged up. You know those babies where they put the thing on their head so that they get a round head?
Yeah.
Instead of the flat head?
The wrapping.
Yeah, it looks like that. But that one's actually him. The one on American Horror Story obviously is a reenactment. Right. That dude looks so similar to him. Cuter though.
Oh my God. Okay.
But anyway, I'll put the link to all of that in the show notes. So he was arrested. Mm-hmm. On September 20th, 1989, Ramirez was convicted on all 43 charges, which was 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. November 7th of that same year, he was sentenced to die by gas chamber. During the court proceedings, there were shenanigans, as you can imagine.
I bet.
Women who loved him.
No, not like that.
Hundreds of women apparently lined up at jail just to be able to visit him, to sit across from him, to talk to him. Like, what are you thinking? The ultimate fangirl.
Look.
I'm leaving the huge pause in.
Not many things make me speechless.
Yes.
But this story is so messed up.
Oh yeah, it's up there. I told you. We've done some crazy stories, but this one's just like...
Oh, I mean, do what you want to do. If you like certain things in the bedroom, I get it. That's fine.
As long as you're not hurting somebody else that don't want to be hurt.
Yes. Like, everybody agreed that we are doing this, so that is why we're doing it. Not, I broke into a house, killed your husband, tied you up, and these chicks are like, ooh, yay, come, no.
Come tie me up.
What?
Yeah, I don't get it. I actually originally did a little bit of research into that and had like a couple of pages on, because I normally do like a PowerPoint. I had about 4 or 5 pages all about that. And I was like, yeah, I'll save that for some other thing. But yeah. There is kind of a little bit of a psychology. There's a word for it. It is a psychology behind it, but almost like victimology. It's like this, But there's some sort of psychology behind women that do this. I know part of it is almost like, especially the ones that marry, because he did get married.
What?
I'll get to that. But in court, he would put pentagrams all over himself. He would shout, "Hail Satan," in the middle of it. He had plans to shoot, I think, the prosecutor, because I didn't write this down, but he didn't take into account that there was going to be metal detectors. I don't know how he got the stuff. I wonder sometimes if, because, there's certain information and it's almost like our lore gets passed down in some of these articles. Like, was that hearsay, or you thought it was fact, or what is it? But anyway, so yeah, about him marrying a woman, she believed he was innocent. He had convinced her he was innocent.
So a real smarty. She
married him and stayed with him until that DNA evidence came out about that 9-year-old girl. And then she just couldn't believe him anymore. So she never went back. So I think she wholeheartedly must have believed he was innocent.
What an idiot.
And I guess maybe they just didn't need the DNA evidence on the rest, so why waste the money? I don't know. Okay, anyway, so here's something I find a little satisfying at the end of this part. Ramirez, I think I was trying to tell you earlier, he's a big Metallica fan, or was. He loved his moniker, the Night Stalker, because it was close to a name of one of their songs, The Night Prowler.
Okay.
In 2003, Metallica put on a 10-song concert for the inmates. Don't care to comment how I feel about that, but whatever. He could hear it from death row, but he was not allowed to attend the concert. He was angrily pacing back and forth in the cell. So that's a little satisfying that he didn't get to go.
It's a shame that people can't see my faces that I make.
Yeah. I mean, we can do YouTube. The big eye rolls.
The just flabbergasted head shake.
What do I gotta do for Metallica to come do a concert for me?
All right.
So in prison, you know how a lot of times they'll get in there like, oh, he was a model citizen. And you're like, well, yeah, because he's not around all the people that he's trying to hurt normally. So he was not a model citizen. He does not disappoint in his evilness.
Okay.
Regularly, he performed sexual acts in front of other prisoners, visitors, and guards. He even had a sign that said he had a propensity to expose himself.
What?
He eventually lost all visitation privileges and even the ability to interact with other death row inmates. How bad do you gotta be where you can't even interact with other death row inmates?
Yeah, like y'all are all about to die, but you still can't
You're the
have
worst.
A friend.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure he thought, a lot of people aren't satisfied with his death, but he thought, I'm sure, that he was going to go out with a blaze of glory, have some big amazing death. But he died like a regular human from cancer at the age of 53.
That is disappointing. Unless it was extremely painful.
I get it, but because he wants all this notoriety and, oh, the Night Stalker. In fact, the last person that he killed, he was like, tell them the Night Stalker was here.
Look, I understand what you're saying. Like, let him die and don't tell anybody, if that's going to help. But I really think he should have suffered and been in horrible pain.
Oh, yeah, if we were able to do that, yeah. But within our confines of what we're allowed to do, I think it was pretty cool that it was just, dun, dun, dun. You died of cancer at 53. So, Anyway, that's the chilling tale of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker.
That was Kristin.
It is to me one of the most fascinating because dude is all over the place. Even like Ted Bundy, girls, pretty much same hairstyle, haircut, everything. It's almost always the same thing. This guy just...
all over the place. Crazy.
Just like a murder tornado came to town.
Murder tornado. Good call.
Yeah.
All right, well. There's not too many things that you introduce that leave me honest to God speechless.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. I got more for you though. Not today, but...
I can't take any more today.
Alright, well that's the end, so thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget, wash your hands.
And lock your doors.
Till
Bye.
next time.
Bye.
My neck, my back.
That's my favorite part of that video. You just... Did you fart?
What?
Oh, it's my glasses. Not you.
Oh, I was like, what are you looking at? Because you're just kind of looking all around. I was like, uh-huh.
That's how I almost got in a fight with I was looking weird through my glasses and she thought I was looking at her funny. I was trying not to laugh so I couldn't calm her down.
What?
You don't want you being awful. I'm falling and I can't get
Kristin.
Okay, originally I was just thinking if only they had those things back then. But then, like, you can't help but think of the commercial. We were so awful. Mm-hmm.